We're just giggling there. I'm talking to Mamabear McGowan, or known to us here as just M, for reasons we'll probably elaborate on in a little while, about your previous incarnation as a, what did you call yourself, a close protection officer?
Close protection operative, yeah.
Operative, okay. Right. We were laughing about how that could be useful at a funeral if if the temperature is running high and people have unhealed difficulties, which of course is part of what we might talk about today. In all seriousness, it's great to talk to you. Thank you for being here. We just did a brilliant breakfast show, I think, that last half hour of the breakfast show, where you were talking about your role in Share and Care Portugal, how you're changing along with others, but I think you're the sort of guiding force on this, changing the perception of death for people individually and how people manage the process within the bureaucracy and institutions and the state of Portugal as well. So you're doing amazing work, and I thought it was very important to have a conversation with you, because the title of this podcast, this particular segment, might be the relevance of having a good death when living one's best life. I mean, that's what we're all about. If I can explain to you, because you're such a sport, I said, can we talk? You didn't say what about, you said yes. So for a bit of context, Portugal Club is about, as you can see there, living an extraordinary, inspiring, transformational life in Portugal. Now, I don't want to put people off. I don't want people to feel like they're not living a great life if they're not being extraordinary, inspiring, and transformational. But it's kind of aspirational, and it can be expressed simply as live. That's what we're about at the Portugal Club. What Louisa and I do is help people live their best lives, specifically in Portugal, because that's where we live, and that's what we're trying to do here. Now, the best life, best death, they're interchangeable, aren't they?
Yeah, you need one. Well, one really helps with the other, and to live our best life. We want to be conscious living so we can consciously die. When we transition without sorting our stuff out in the present, then we've got unfinished business, really. And the more we can sort out now and overcome now, the less that we'll have to, the less that will challenge us on our deathbed. And depending on what your beliefs are, as you know, Carmen, a non-denominational minister, and some of us believe in reincarnation. Imagine the stuff we don't do in this life, we've got it when we come back. So it's another reason to really get our heads down and get stuff sorted now.
I agree with you. And again, this shows us how life and death are interchangeable, indistinguishable, really. Because even if we're not going to die, which is a silly thing to say, because let's just imagine for a moment. I mean, we're talking about the physical body. Other aspects of us, of course, may persist, and we may or may not go into that on this particular conversation. But even in day-to-day life, as you say there, dealing with unresolved stuff in the way that you might deal with your impending deaths coming at some point is in our lives. Just the day-to-day stuff, getting our life, our house in order is really important, isn't it? So especially so in the area that you're talking about, the area that you work in, when people are facing, as you put it, their transition from this existence. But it's just generally good housekeeping, isn't it? To get your, I think you used the word shit this morning on the show. Yeah. You weren't the only one, it has to be said. But getting your shit together, it's important, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's so important to do what we can and take responsibility for everything that we can, because the more we take responsibility for ourselves, the easier everything else flows. So when we get our house in order, we're not just taking care of ourselves inwardly, which we are, we're giving a gift to ourselves. We're saving ourselves the hassle of dealing with it when we're up here trying to deal with life and living and illness and death and all that kind of thing. But we're also taking care of those that we love. We're giving them a gift. We're saving them the hassle. The amount of politics you get around someone's deathbed is unreal. People dying, like when you're dying, just feel into that. Think, okay, so in a situation where I'm actually presently dying, Do I really want people arguing over who wants what and what's going to happen and who's going to do what with me or to me and my care? And they're going to, you know, they're going to be arguing, and they do, right over the person, a person who's semi-conscious, and they're giving it they're giving it some. You don't need that. The person can hear you. You know, it's not helping the vibes in the room. We want to keep that energy high, raise the vibration a bit, share a bit of love, be a bit considerate, a bit of compassion.
Well said. And I can understand why this happens, because these are two trajectories, aren't they, in the room? The trajectory of transition, and that is going to be a very profound, poignant, powerful experience for the person who's going. And there'll be a certain inevitability they might feel at some point, and they will not, to use the word shit again, they will not be giving a shit about any worldly concerns at that point, I would have thought. Whereas
it depends on how far someone's into their ego. Okay. Because when someone's so caught up in it, they're not able, they're in a state of fear. And when we are in any state of fear in our lives, you'll know yourself, as soon as something happens, there's that fear feeling that takes over our body, and we're embodying that fear. We're not able to function. We're not able to think straight. There is no clarity because we're caught up in that fear. So when we're in a fear of not getting the money, we forget. And then you've got to deal with the aftermath, because whoever it is transitions, and you've left with like a couple of people or all the siblings, and you've got that whole thing that's still there, that's still going to continue through the funeral, arguing over who's what and what mum would have wanted or dad would have wanted or whatever.
Yeah, they've all got their own view on it, haven't they?
Still that caught up in it, and it's only till afterwards, because they're running on autopilot. They've got all that shock going on, which, you know, as soon as you've got shock going on in the body from anything, you're not really conscious or clear anyway. You're still in a state of fear, so you're running on till afterwards, and then you've got huge regrets. Say if this, say if that, then it impacts the whole grieving process and brings it on further. So what we're doing by getting our shit in order is we're saving all that. We're stopping all that from happening to a major degree, and we're saying, do you know what? You don't have to decide who's turning the machine off, because this is what I've stated. This is what I want. This is my wishes, and my power of attorney, if you like, is going to ensure that these things happen. It's all stated here on this paperwork in my living will, what happens while I'm alive up to the point of transition. And then you've got what happens in your will afterwards. So you've got your living will for while you're alive, and you've got your standard will, which is like, so you've died. Where's your body going? Who's going to take care of it? Who's going to wash the body? Who's going to help it get ready for its next? You know, the body's served us well. How can we honour the body and celebrate that life? What kind of funeral do we want? What's going to happen then? Is it being donated to science? Is it being cremated? Is it being buried? Is it being sent off to the family in another country? And then what's happening after that? Because there's all the stuff that you leave behind. That there's all the finances, all the passwords, you know, who's going to sort out your electric bill? You know
what? I mean, there you go. So in this scenario we've described, the clucking, as the word that comes to mind for me, it's where people are scared, where people are uncertain, they may well go into that stuff. And if, as you said, with already the 200 things you mentioned there, if you've taken care of a number of those things,
there's loads more as well. We've just mentioned
500, 2,000, whatever there are, but there is a checklist of things that I suspect we're going to be. You've already worked on it. We're going to bring people together to look at this. I think with the Death Cafe idea, or a webinar, or a workshop, we will do this work. But if you can, as in life, getting your house in order, if you can get your end of life path sorted out, there can be a clearing, can't there, for the more conscious work that might take place. And that's what I want to ask you about, because this idea of, you know, a part of a good life might be a good death. What does it mean to you to have an extraordinary, inspiring, and transformational death? at this time in our culture and with some of the hang-ups, neuroses and ideas we've got about death?
Well, death's so beautiful and so personal. So we've each got the power to choose whatever we would like. And some of us would like a big party and a celebration of the life, you know, like a living funeral, if you like, where you attend your own funeral, people get to talk to you and they say, you know, thank you. This is the legacy that you have gifted us. This is what you did for me in my lifetime. You have gifted me this. And when these things
crying
happen,
already. I mean, can anyone get through that?
It's beautiful. So you're honouring a person before they've gone. You know this person's going to go soon, and you're taking that time to just be present with them and say thank you. All that gratitude in the room and that chance to be able to put things right and say, do you know what? I know we had such a thing going on at but I want to get things straight with you now. And you take that time to sit with those people that you're ready to do that work with and come to a form of acceptance on those things that have gone. So this is what I can help with. I help people come to an acceptance of where they currently are, get their shit together, get things in order, not just on the paperwork level, but also inside. It's all about inside and honouring your truth. No one else's truth.
How's it going? I mean, you're swimming against the tide here, aren't you? You know, let's go for a sort of fictional normal death in our culture. Plus, we add to it some of the mysteries of being in Portugal for those of us in the Portugal Club, the migrants here. And what might happen is normally it's sudden, traumatic, and difficult. Takes you by surprise. And who are you going to call? The funeral directors and maybe the police and the doctor might be. But this is in the normal world. This is what can happen.
In the normal world, the first thing to do is take a breath.
Right.
Take a pause, because I'm not being funny, with the most respect and love possible. They're dead, okay? They're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. They're not doing anything. It's okay.
Yes.
Put the kettle on. Yes. Take a breath.
Yes.
And then call the doctor. Yeah? So have your cup of tea while you're waiting for the doctor, especially like, the doctor might call the GNR or something. That's fine. But just call the doctor, have your cup of tea, get yourself together.
Specifics here. If you don't have a doctor, you can call 112.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so you can call the paramedic, emergency services, or the doctor, and then that's the first person you would suggest calling is the the person.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. As long as you know that this person's dead, just take a breath and then call ideally your doctor or the local doctor, because let's face it, 999 and 112 and things like that, they're there to help preserve life.
Yes.
Well,
we've missed that boat on this.
Yeah. So if they've definitely passed, and maybe there's been mouth to mouth or whatever, and then you might call an ambulance. But maybe it's just their time, and you're like, okay, call the doctor, make a cup of tea, and give yourself that time to breathe, because self-care is so important.
Yes.
It's so important to give yourself that love and that space and that time to just breathe and be with the moment and say, okay, so this is happening right now. I've called a doctor. Okay. And try and be with it, you know? And depending on the time of day, I mean, if it's during the day, send a message to me, you know, I'm just having a moment, and I'll just be present with you in that moment. You can get me through sharing care or like on Messenger. And once that's done, things are going to be taken out your hands. Someone's going to turn up. They're going to move the body to the hospital, and then they'll sort something out. So depending on whether you've got insurance or not, it's finding the right funeral director. Really, you want someone who's closest to the hospital, really, you know, and it depends which part of Portugal you are in.
So there are certainly practicalities here, and the hospital will, between the doctor and the hospital, they will come up with a time of death and a death certificate.
Yeah,
and then
the death certificate won't be straight away, Carl.
Okay.
The death certificate's a bit of a funny one, because before they'll issue it, they kind of want to know what's going on. So it can take a little while before they issue a death certificate. But the funeral directors sort that out as well. So the body is already...
We're in the process now. We're in this, where we've gone with this conversation. We're in the process of the body being in a process of disposal or care. Yes,
yeah. Okay. So it goes from the doctor. It can go either straight to the funeral director, or it goes to the hospital, then to the funeral director.
Okay, and then it will be in Portugal.
As long as a doctor has to see the body and sign it as, you know, and if the doctor has any concerns, the doctor will then call the relevant people.
Okay, and then typically in Portugal, a body will go to the Casa de Mortuaria. Is that the
That's basically the funeral director bit, because they're so quick. They are so quick over here. They don't mess about. There's none of this waiting about. I know with like DIY things and ordering things in Portugal, everything's always tomorrow. Yeah. Well, you never know which tomorrow it is. And that's okay. It's the Portuguese way of being, and it's beautiful. It's so laid back. But they aren't laid back when it comes to funerals. They get straight in there.
I've heard this. Okay. And they want to have a ceremony. They want to have a burial, sometimes a cremation ASAP. We're sometimes within 3 days.
48 hours. Within
48 hours,
definitely. Right. 3 days max, really. Okay. And what they do is they take the body, and you have the option. You can still go in and say, please, may I wash the body? Can I? And they will allow that.
Right. Okay.
So you can go in and you can, you know, you can be the one to clean the body and put the clothes on and stuff, which can be quite challenging. But, you know, they'll help with that if you want help.
I'm very aware here we're having two kinds of conversations. And this is what happened when we were talking on the breakfast show this morning. It's not a bad thing. It's just that clearly there are two parts to this, aren't there, at least? One is the formality and what goes on with the process according to one's relationship with the state and the country and the culture that we're in. And there's also this other conversation, which I think is the interesting conversation in this context of the Portugal Club, of what it means to be conscious about this process, rather than it to be a rushed thing that we would rather not think about. That tends to be the normal way, doesn't it? Let's not think about it. Oh my God, we have to think about it. I haven't made any preparations. The decisions I'm making might not be the best decisions because of the state I'm in. And often death is like that, I think, for people. I don't think that's an unfair assessment of often what happens to people in that situation. The proposition we're talking about, I think, is to embrace the idea that we are going to pass, transition, die at some point, at least our physical selves. No one's escaped that as far as we can tell so far. And how we might be consciously involved in that process.
Yeah.
And that can start a long way, can't it, before any sign of disease or dying or terminal care. You know, we can be having this conversation
today.
Yes, quite.
Yeah, you can start today. People can be challenged with the thought of death. I've coached people and counseled people who've gone, do you know what? I don't sleep properly at night. I'm scared I'm going to die.
Right.
Or some people have come to me and said, you know what, I'm going for an operation and I'm scared to death that if I go to sleep, I won't wake up. And we work with that, you know, and that's all connected. So this whole fear of death, or people who are contemplating suicide, they need a lot of the time it's because they're feeling so hopeless, so helpless, so stuck. And when you're in that frame of mind, it's hard to find any clarity, because you feel like you've tried everything and explored everything and there's nothing left. Well, usually by the time they come to talk to me, we can find that something. And sometimes maybe we can't, but we can find a different perspective and we can look at it. You know, I'm not there to judge. Who am I to judge? You know, I just sit with someone, I'll listen, and we'll say, okay, so look at this, look at that, what options are available.
So the general guidance there then is to, I mean, we know this, don't we? If you think about something on your own for too long, the general flow is downwards, isn't it? It's in talking to others and opening up where the light can come in, isn't it? And where the relief can come in. And we know, don't we? I mean, this is, to me, my experience, you know, of depression and not feeling like not feeling good in life is because I've only had my own thoughts that I've ruminated on and had secrets and kept it to myself. And we know this, don't we, as a cliche, really. And it's good to talk. It's good to open up, and it's good. I mean, it doesn't have to be you, does it? It could be anybody. You're a specialist.
What you need to remember when you talk to someone, you want it to be a safe person. Yeah. Because for me personally, in my journey, I was always told to shut up. I was told not to show feelings. You don't cry. You shut up. You don't make noise. You're seen and not heard. That kind of upbringing, and that is very British. You know, it's some of it's pretty Victorian. You wouldn't think it.
Yes, you seem too young. You seem too young to have an upbringing of that kind. Honestly,
but now I know it's better to talk. But it's about, you heal when you feel. So the more people learn to feel into things, the more space there is for healing to occur.
Well said.
And it's so important that when we go to speak to someone, because people don't always like to hear about death, they don't want to hear about illness, they tell you to man up, you know, you should be better, you shouldn't think that, don't be so cowardly, suicide's for cowards. It's utter B word.
Say it, go on, just say it.
Bollocks. It's bollocks.
Yes.
And it's like, it takes guts, you know, and it takes so much thought, and it takes so much courage to even contemplate doing these things. And it takes a lot of courage just to reach out for help.
Yeah.
And when you can find that safe person to talk to, it doesn't have to be me, but it needs to be someone that's non-judgmental, someone that can hold space for you without criticizing you or putting you down. Like, you're not going,
sometimes people want to help, don't they? And they can
but helping from their own perspective is where, you know, you go, yes, but if it was me, if it, you know, if you was in my shoes or whatever, or I was in your shoes, and it's like, oh my goodness, like we're on different levels of consciousness, this is not going to work. You know, so it's being at someone, not so much being at the same level as them, but just holding space for that person to be wherever they are, however they feel in that moment, and just be present and hear them. Because sometimes people just don't get heard. They don't feel like they matter, you know, they feel so small, but everyone's so beautiful and so unique, you know, that, and they've got so many gifts they can give. They just can't see it because they're in that state of fear. And when they're in the state of fear, they haven't got the clarity.
Quite. So and it's a vicious cycle, of course.
Yeah. But when they feel safe and in the presence of another person, maybe it's you've got to be careful with religion, because a lot of religion are very funny about, you're not going to heaven then.
There's our quote of the day. You've got to be careful with religion. It's like drugs, isn't it?
Yeah.
Careful. You don't know what trouble you might get into.
Well, it's me, isn't it? So the thing is with me, Carl, you know, you get open, honest, true communication. You can be yourself, and I'll love you no matter what, you know.
What an offer. What a context for being.
It's so important that you just get that time and that place you can express yourself honestly and say, do you know what? I'm suffering. I've just had this diagnosis of a terminal illness.
Yeah.
And it's just screwing my head. And like, it's important to know that it's a diagnosis not a prognosis. These things are given to us by doctors who base everything on Western medicine, on statistics, and on their way of doing things and their numbers. Yes. And we're so beautiful. We're so unique as human beings. Not one of us is the same. And that diagnosis might not be valid. It might just be like that much might be accurate. And I'm sure you've got doctors going, oh no, shaking head everywhere. But do you know what? I was told I wouldn't see again. I've got my sight. I was told I wouldn't drive again. I drive. I was told I couldn't walk again. I walk no problem, you know? And all because I took responsibility for my health. I was told I couldn't. And I thought, well, do you know what? I'll either die trying, or because they said if you don't take these meds and do all this, then you're going to die. I was like, okay, then I'm cool with that.
This is quite a tangent. I was told I'd never be able to play the piano again. And the thing is, I couldn't play it anyway. So they were quite right in that particular instance. But you're absolutely right. What doctors tend not to do, if I may respectfully suggest, is own things. They talk about it as though it's gospel truth, don't they? We've seen a lot of this in the last couple of years, following the science, etc. It's like, you've got 3 months, I'm afraid. 6 months tops. It's like, well, okay, hold on a minute. What you mean to say there is the last person you saw with a similar situation, that's how long they lasted.
Yeah, but what happens there, it's this thing called, and I'm going to go a bit metaphysical here on you, Carl.
Oh dear.
We've got this thing called the universal law of psychic cause and effect. If someone tells you have 6 months to live, you then believe you have 6 months to live, you'll live 6 months. Yes. An awful lot of research got done on this kind of thing. And what you'll find is people who were told they had a date, they believed it, and it pretty much worked out that way. Those that weren't told that they had a date, some of them recovered and some of them went much, much longer. Yes. So a lot of the power is in ourselves.
Yes.
Now,
yes.
I'm not there to say that miracles happen, but I'm there to say, be your own miracle. Your body's the greatest pharmacy you'll ever come across. It's not about finding a cure. It's about finding a better way of living, finding a way to improve your quality of life. When we improve our quality of life, changes happen, miracles happen all on their own. They don't need no extra help because we are here and we are living our best life. And for me, back then, I was living my best life. I've still got a cane now. I was taught how to walk with a cane because I couldn't see. I couldn't cross a road. I was told I'd be blind forever.
Really?
I was walking with a stick and a cane, which I had to be taught properly how to walk with a stick and a cane and how to cross roads. And it was scary as anything.
I bet.
But it's finding ways to do things. It's finding ways to... Like they have, it's occupational therapists. People come in and say, okay, so how can we do this? How can we make this work for you? And when someone receives a terminal diagnosis, something like that, that's the diagnosis, not the prognosis. How can we improve your quality of life starting now? How can we improve?
That's a metaphor for life, I think. There's a metaphor for life. Are we living with a diagnosis or a prognosis here? And I think that's a very transferable metaphor to this whole idea and notion of death that we have. I think we're in a dark age and strange times when it comes to our relationship with death. And I see that you're part of the change on that. One of my wishes in life is to stay on topic with you during a conversation like this, but we never can. But what I'll do here on this occasion, because I know we'll talk again, and we will look at doing certainly webinars, probably a workshop. I think this is a nice work to be doing in the company of other people in real life, where we can smell each other and see each other. And hug each other. Yeah, Zoom might have its limitations with this particular topic, but we will go there. We will go in deeper into this conversation. You are fearless, Mamabear McGowan, with your pursuit in this department, and I'd like to acknowledge you for that and take my hat off to you for how you go about this. You are certainly a warrior in this department, as well as a close-up personal protection operative, as we've discovered this morning. And I look forward to opening up this conversation. You know, I think we're both fans of Stephen Jenkinson. That's to go on the reading list, isn't it? And that's some pretty good insight from somebody who really knows.
In the UK as well. I know this is the Portugal Club, yes, and we're all about Portugal and we love Portugal. But in the UK right now, he's touring the UK and he's been in Ireland and that. And so if you want to see the guy in person and be present with him and his
band, I think he's touring with his band. I mean, it's an evening's entertainment, which is a really interesting twist on this, to look at, you know, all of life with an evening of entertainment and education and music and insight and wisdom is extraordinary. That's Stephen Jenkinson, another leading light in this area. You're doing your bit over here in Portugal in this community, so I thank you for that. And people can find you. I'll put the link to Sharing Care Portugal and any other links you want us to feature so that people can get in touch with you. And we'll leave it here for now for today, having had a fascinating conversation, but with the promise to continue down this road and in this direction and open up this conversation with people who want to have it. Is that may I speak for you in that way?
Absolutely. I'm all up for it. And the more we can do to make death welcome in our home, because like if we was in Brazil, we'd be partying for a couple of weeks a year. Let's just bring the party home. Let's party our own way. Let's embrace death and living and dying and honor those that are still with us while they're still here, because we can. We have a choice, and it's our responsibility to, if we accept our responsibility there, choose to do that and accept full responsibility for ourselves, like we will have like a revolution. We will change the whole death process, and there will not be fear around dying anymore.
Amazing last words there. Thank you so much. Talk to you again soon. Bye for now.